Alright, folks. So I was meaning to actually do a preview to this fight over the week, but I never found the time to do so. I'm currently out of town, but I just got around to watching the IBF 108-pound vacant world title fight between Hector Flores and Sivenathi Nontshinga. A fight which, frankly, I was unable to really call because neither guy, in my view, had really solidified themselves and proven themselves at a significant enough level to where I could have given a thorough and complete examination of their skill set relative to one another and how they would deal with each other. In the case of Sivenathi Nontshinga, in his fights, he had fought guys like Christian Araneta and Ivan Soriano, and mostly guys previously to that who were largely flat-footed punchers, and in the case of Araneta, an explosive combination puncher who can't really cut the ring off. But in this case, he was going against a guy who was going to basically just crowd the pocket as much as possible and come forward with pure brute force, and simply look to just collapse the pocket. Just Flores' entire goal, collapsing the pocket, utilizing his work rate, his activity, and largely foregoing his sharpness and his accuracy in large part to just break down and whittle down his opponent. In the case of Flores, I had not seen him against someone who was as athletically dynamic as Nontshinga. He struggled in his previous fight against a guy named Jose Ramirez, who was, bigger than him. So I kind of give him a pass for that. But his biggest fight was, of course, against Jay Harris, who had been moving down in weight, further dehydrating himself, even as a big 112-pounder. And he ended up getting stopped to the body, got worn down. But one thing that prevented me from going all in on potentially picking Hector Flores is the fact that Sivenathi has tremendous fitness. In the fight against Christian Araneta, for those of you guys who didn't see, which was a very tough fight for him, he was bouncing on his toes repetitively for the whole 12 rounds of the fight. You never really saw much of a lift in rhythm and tempo with Nontshinga. He was constantly moving, constantly using his lateral movement, stepping in and out, and his activity never depreciated. And this fight showcased the same things, and he won this fight on his fitness basically alone. Now, the first 3 rounds I had Nontshinga winning. The first and third rounds were very close. I thought the difference in those rounds were largely his jab. In the second round, which he was losing by a relatively comfortable margin, he eventually managed to score a knockdown with a straight right hand, which was relatively reminiscent of his knockout against Ivan Soriano, where he came over the top. He was able to pierce through, not pierce through his guard, but he was able to use his jab, draw in a jab from Flores, where he was able to, catch him overcommitting and timed him with the overhand right around the ear, and he managed to put him down on the canvas, thus costing him 2 points and probably costing Flores the fight. But he eventually started to break down. His construct was never really full in this fight, and that's one of his biggest flaws as a fighter, is the fact that he does not have the greatest, most tight, compact construct. He tends to lose his shape. Thus, he was drawn into an inside fight. He lacked a stab jab to the body. So he had to basically fight. He had to take his early lead and the gaining momentum that Flores was developing, and he had to fight Flores' fight in order to actually whittle him down. And that was a significant factor for him. He was getting beat up on the inside in the mid-rounds. The body shots from Hector Flores were vicious. The same liver shots that ended up resulting in the demise of Jay Harris were basically the exact same shots that Sivenathi was facing. He was getting beat up, he was getting hurt, he got put on wobbly legs in the 4th round, and clearly he was tired around the middle rounds. And Flores, he would go on certain momentary points where he would try to catch breathers. Episodically, he would get pushed back, and Nontshinga would push him to the ropes and land some good shots. But he never really piled it on the inside. There were instances where I felt he should have taken a page out of Stephen Fulton's book and smothered him on the inside, used a shoulder to try to pin down Flores' guard, and continued to use his weight to lean on Flores and try to wear him down. But he was looking to use his range whenever Flores would try to back up to the ropes, whenever he would look to reset his feet. He was trying to pin him down with 1-2s, and I felt that was a mistake. I felt, considering what he had left in the tank by the end of the fight, had he been able to use his weight and use some of Flores' strategies against him, considering the lack of success Flores was having on the back foot, he could have won some of those middle rounds that he was costing himself, in those, last half minutes where Flores would just come on strong after Nontshinga would display very decent episodes of work. But in the last 3 rounds, Flores' stamina, his excessive work rate, and his lack of control of the pace and inability to maintain, a consistent work rate due to the fact that he was not really pacing himself. He was just consistently committing to all of his shots. He was trying to get explosive power into his punches. He was trying to hurt him with every shot he was throwing. Definitely cost him, I'd say, in the last 3 rounds. As Nontshinga started to get behind the jab, he started to employ the strategies that I had laid out for him, obviously, early in this video. He started to push him back. He started to work the body. He was using his upper body movement to take away a lot of Flores' routes, up to the head. And Flores' lack of sharpness, as I pointed out, he tends to sacrifice his sharpness and a lot of, economical boxing, looking to catch opponents with clean flush shots. He tends to sacrifice that in return for work rate. And in turn, as he started to tire, as he was becoming less sharp, his hand speed depreciated, and thus Nontshinga was able to just counterpunch him effectively in the 10th and 11th rounds. It was more the same early in the 12th round, but then Flores started to hurt him and come back with big shots of his own. Nontshinga was able to get behind the jab as Flores was tiring. Flores' foot speed was not working effectively. He was not cutting the ring off, and Nontshinga was using his jab extremely well. And I thought that last round was basically even. So I had the fight a draw, 114 to 114. But I could really see 6-6 or 7-5. It's just a tremendous, tremendous fight. This is one of the best fights I've ever seen in the 108-pound division. I would say it's the best fight at 108 pounds since the fight between Nontshinga's countryman Heki Butler against Ryoichi Taguchi, which occurred in 2018. When, of course, Taguchi relinquished his unified titles in the ring against him. I'm still kind of trying to process what went on in that ring, but the 108-pound division is looking to be in tremendous spirits as the number 1 and number 2 in the division, Kenshiro Teraji and Hiroto Kiyoguchi, are unifying on November the 1st. And Jonathan Gonzalez is going to be defending his belt against prospect puncher Shokichi Iwata. Man, I'm still trying to process that fight. Right now, it's hard to say. I'd like to see a rematch of this fight. But it's hard to say whether I really think. I feel like Nontshinga would match up better against a Jonathan Gonzalez because he does hit very hard, and Gonzalez is he is vulnerable, albeit he has proven to be more dedicated, in his camps as of recently, as he admitted himself before the Elwin Soto fight. He lacked discipline early in his career and was showing up early in camps and was only taking 2-3 weeks to prepare his fights, as opposed to the long preparation he took against Elwin Soto, where his fitness was certainly much better. But Nontshinga definitely has a puncher's chance against him. That would be very interesting, but I couldn't favor him necessarily against the top 2 guys in the division. I think Kenshiro's movement is way too good. He does hit very hard, and he does show some of the exemplary explosive features that Christian Araneta shows, but with even better foot speed and footwork. So he'd have an easier time setting traps and luring Nontshinga into big punches to potentially hurt him. Furthermore, Kyoguchi is a bit more educated on the inside, has better fitness, is better at leveraging his weight against his opponents, and his body work is more effective. So I feel like he would be a bit too technical. I feel like he would outpoint Sivenathi. He wouldn't stop him, but I do think that fight would result in Kyoguchi victory. But what a tremendous fight that was. I suggest anybody who even likes boxing remotely to check out this fight. That was unbelievable. I'd say it's probably the fight of the year, or the second best fight of the year. Tremendous, tremendous fight. Have a good one anyways.